Hi everybody, welcome to this edition of Dubro 101. Typically, we use these videos to talk about basic modeling skills, but this time around we're going to do something a little bit different. A few days ago, we posted some photos on our social media accounts of this project. I call it the Snow Buggy, and your response to those photos has been tremendous. So we decided to put together this video that shows the Snow Buggy in a little bit more detail and explains how we put it together. So keep watching and I'll tell you all about it. The basic concept of the Snow Buggy is really quite simple. We started off with a 1/10 scale off-road buggy, and I think any off-road buggy would do. In this case, we used the Amp from ECX, which is a beginner-friendly two-wheel drive machine. We traded the wheels and tires for our Dubro Snowbird snow skis, and then we traded out the transmission for a propeller. What we ended up with is a machine that's really fun to drive on the snow. Now, I know that a lot of you out there have been doing projects like this for years. In fact, many of you have shared pictures of your projects on our social media pages, and we think that's great. The Snow Buggy simply represents one of the many ways that you can approach this kind of project. Let's begin by talking about how I mounted the skis to the buggy. The Amp has 4mm diameter straight axles on the front and the rear. Unfortunately, that matches up exactly with the mounting holes on the skis, so they were literally a bolt-on fit. I kept the 12mm hex adapters in place, slid the skis onto the axle, and then tightened on the lock nut. And that's all there was to it. Now, if the buggy that you're using has larger diameter axles, then there is some latitude to drill out the mounting holes on the skis. Just do so very carefully. If your axles are smaller than 4mm diameter, then you can use brass tubing, aluminum tubing, or even heat shrink tubing to build up the diameter to what you need for mounting the skis. During my initial testing of the Snow Buggy, I decided that I wanted to get a little bit more ground clearance, and I achieved that by adding spacers between the mounting hubs of the skis and the skis themselves. The spacers are made from 3/8" basswood square stock, and that's material that you can buy at just about any hobby store or craft store. I cut the basswood to the correct length, and then I drilled 2 holes to match the mounting holes on the bottom of the ski. Now, I then painted the basswood and then bolted everything back together. Note that the screws that come with the skis are 440 threads by 3/8 of an inch long. So if you add the spacers like I did, you will need correspondingly longer screws. So in this case, I'm now using 440 screws that are 3/4 of an inch long. The Snowbird snow skis were originally designed for use on model airplanes, and in that application, we use springs that limit the skis' rotational movement and also returns them to a fixed position. However, on the Snow Buggy, you can see that the skis are free to rotate all the way around the axle. And when driving around the Snow Buggy, that doesn't really create any problems. However, it is possible for one of the skis to catch an edge or dip into a rut and flip upside down. Now, in my experience, that happens so infrequently that it's not even an issue. There may be some of you out there that are already thinking how fast you can make your version of the Snow Buggy, or maybe you're wondering how far you can jump it. And if you're one of those people, you may also want to start considering ways that you can limit the ski's rotational movement. And I'm convinced that you'll come up with some very clever solutions for that. Now let's talk about the body on the Snow Buggy. This was originally the monster truck version of the Amp, which had a monster truck body, but I decided to swap it for the buggy body for 2 basic reasons. First of all, the buggy body hugs the chassis very closely, and this helps keep the snow out when driving around. And even if you have waterproof electronics, I find that the snow and resulting water can be problematic. So it's better just to keep the snow out in the first place, and this tight-fitting body does a good job of that. The second reason for using the buggy body is that the propeller in back needs a lot of clean airflow from the front in order to work efficiently. Obviously, a large truck body is going to block a lot of that airflow. However, this low-profile buggy body lets the air flow cleanly. Now let's talk a little bit about the propulsion system on the Snow Buggy. Some of you have commented with concern that this machine uses a brushed motor, and you are exactly right. One of my goals when putting this project together was to use all of the stock electronics, so this is the original brush motor that was included with the Amp and was attached to the transmission. The Amp also included a receiver with an integrated brushed speed control, so swapping this motor out for a brushless would have involved changing the motor itself as well as the speed control and receiver. But I can tell you that this motor actually does a pretty good job of pushing the Snow Buggy around, but there's no reason you couldn't install some insane power system all your own. In fact, we encourage creativity, and we look forward to seeing some of the things that you come up with. The part you will need to mount a propeller onto your electric motor is called a prop adapter, and this is a common hobby shop item. You will just need to know the diameter of your motor's output shaft in order to select the correct prop adapter. Choosing a propeller is a little bit more difficult, and it's actually very important that you match your propeller with your specific motor and also the voltage of the battery that you're going to be using. It may be helpful to think of choosing a propeller in the same way that you choose a pinion gear on an RC car or truck. If you choose a propeller that's too large, you're going to overwork the motor, pull a lot of amps, and maybe cook part of your power system. If you choose a propeller that's too small, you're not going to realize the full power potential of your motor, and your Snow Buggy is going to be a dog. Optimizing the propeller for your specific electric power system is a bit too broad of a topic for us to cover here, but there are definitely a lot of online resources that can help you. You may also want to reach out to your local hobby shop or model airplane flying club. For my Snow Buggy with the stock brush motor that I run with either a 2-cell LiPo pack or a 6-cell nickel metal hydride pack, I find that a master air screw 7-inch by 4-inch 3-blade propeller works really well for me. I realize that some of you are not used to working with model airplane propellers and may not realize just how dangerous they are. Even a relatively small propeller like this on a modest brush motor is capable of inflicting a lot of damage and pain, so always be safety conscious and stay well clear of the propeller. There are a million different ways that you can mount the motor to your Sky Buggy, and the mount you choose will most likely be a reflection of your specific motor and propeller combination. Now, in my case, I began by removing the transmission and drive shafts from the amp. I then created a pylon out of 1/4-inch plywood. Again, this material can be bought at any hobby shop or craft store. Now, I designed my pylon so that it is tall enough to provide adequate clearance for the propeller above the ground. The pylon also has a notch in it where the motor goes, and I mounted the motor using a pair of clamshell motor mounts. It's important to realize that in many RC cars and trucks, the transmission housing is also an integral structural component. So I made sure that my pylon bolts not only to the chassis, but also to the rear bulkhead to maintain the structural rigidity that the transmission housing once provided. Well, that wraps up the basics of how the Snow Buggy came together. As you can see, it really is a simple project. And we'll close things out with a little bit of footage of this thing in action. I hope that some of you out there are encouraged to try a project like this for yourself. And when you do, please share photos and videos on Dubro's social media pages. Thanks for watching.